What we've been doing over the last year on the project, I'll talk you through some of the latest developments. I'm going to give you an introduction to the project, and I'm going to go through what we've done in a very brief kind of snapshot of the project as a whole, and then we're both going to talk about our PhD research and how that contributes to the project in a bit more detail. And then hopefully at the very end we've got time, and we'll have time to show you some of the technology that we've developed at the stage of the project. So to explain what patina is perhaps easier to explain what it isn't in a kind of weird way. So there were two things that we wanted to avoid with the project when it was first being conceived. The first was augmented reality. And we felt there were kind of two issues with augmented reality. The first one is that it creates a barrier between the researcher using the technology and the actual material you're researching, because you're having to mediate your interactions through some sort of device, whether that be a screen or a mobile device or whatever. The other problem with it is in terms of collaboration. So if you want to work with someone else on something that you're interested in researching, both of you need to have the same device in order to be seeing what the other person is seeing. The other thing that we wanted to kind of stay away from was the Internet of Things. And the main reason for this was that it forces you to put something or impose something on the artifact in some way so that you can work with it. So whether that's a tag, some sort of RFID tag, or something you're in fact altering the artifact or research material you're working with, which for many researchers isn't a possibility. So the patina project is about emphasising this kind of relationship that the researcher has with the material and the privacy of that relationship. And so we specified at the very start of the project that everything that we develop has to be worn or controlled by the user, it's portable and they own it, and nothing can be installed in the spaces that we're working in. So we were quite inspired by the Sixth Sense project, particularly by this idea of mobile projection. So we really like this because everyone that's working in the environment can see what's being projected. So it's a brilliant focus for collaboration. So here's our team. There's quite a few researchers on the project from a number of universities. As you can see, we span a large range of disciplines on the project. And one of the very interesting things is that because it's so diverse, people come into the project having different understandings of different concepts, and a lot of the first year really has been kind of breaking down these barriers to communication, really trying to understand where other people are coming from and to kind of quite ourselves into the similar trains of thinking. Yes, just skip over that. And patina, so patina stands for personal architectonics through interactions with artifacts. So architectonics is quite a central idea to our project. It's an idea that's taken a year for some of us to even kind of really understand what it means. For me, it's about kind of taking these models of space, so we have things like physical models, virtual models, and then kind of mental images of spaces, and then combining them. It's how we treat them as a holistic kind of whole. And I particularly like this bit about how the structures of our ideas and the built environments organise the people and the objects within them. So not really thinking about how a researcher can organise their environment, but thinking about the ways that environment organises the way that a researcher thinks and kind of works within that place. Okay. So yes, so these are some of the key concepts that we've been thinking about over the last year. So obviously architectonics, just covered that. Provenance is another big one. So thinking about kind of the sources of people's ideas, where they've come from, how they've developed them, and we've been talking a lot about kind of walking in the footsteps of other researchers. So how we can trace through someone's ideas how they got to them, and whether that would be interesting in terms of collaboration, where you can track back how someone made a discovery, for example. Everything that we do on patina is very artifact-centric. That's our main focus, working with artifacts. And as well, we're interested in kind of exploring this idea of institutions and kind of how research happens in institutions versus kind of personal practice and citizen research, particularly in light of kind of using portable devices where everyone kind of owns their technology, which contrasts dramatically with kind of the institutional approach where the technology is installed in the space and it's there for people to use. Okay, so I'm just going to talk you through some of the stuff we've done. So a lot of the first year was about research on other researchers and trying to understand research practices. So to this end, we've used a variety of methods. We've used quite a lot of ethnography, going into different environments, trying to understand the activities. In the first year, we kind of chose to approach two environments in particular that interested us. One was archaeology, because of the archaeologists and the archaeological interest on the project. And another was genealogy and kind of family tree research and that type of thing. So yeah, ethnography, we did interviews, we did questionnaires with people, particularly genealogists and researchers within universities. And then we did a series of kind of probes which were to try and get a further kind of insight into people's motivations behind research, what it means to them, why they do it, which were very interesting and perhaps it's not my area of research, but they really came up with things that you wouldn't expect in terms of what motivates people to do research in the first place. So as I said as well, a lot of our research has been about, a lot of our first year is about kind of breaking down the boundaries to communication. And to this end we came up with this idea of kind of cards that you could use to kind of exchange ideas among the group. So you could kind of describe what you meant by a concept and then bring it to the table and put it into play and then discuss around it, which was a really interesting way of breaking down these barriers to communication because everyone kind of understands things differently based on their kind of disciplinary backgrounds. And then we build stuff. So we've got quite a few HCI practitioners on our project. So this was engineering stuff, I should say. So one of the things that we created, or one of the designers created, was this idea called chronotape. So it's about exploring timelines in a tangible way. So we have kind of timeline tape that can be drawn on, can be cut up and stitched back together. But then once you place it on this reader, you can then manipulate that digitally as well. So it's about having a physical object that can be annotated and messed around with, but has digital data associated with it. And it was constructed as a way for people that are doing family tree research to kind of talk about the personal narratives and things that were interesting to them. Because there's a real institutional divide between what the professional genealogists, what they expect of amateur researchers. You know, they want them to have really massive family trees, to be filling them out and making them available to other researchers. Whereas people that are doing family history probably aren't interested by that. They're probably much more interested in kind of constructing something that's meaningful to them, that they can then take away and describe to their relatives or people in their family. So we felt this was a much more interesting way of exploring that idea and gave them something tangible to do that with. Some other stuff that we've built, Emma's going to talk about her system, so I'm not really going to go into that. We created some software for note-taking. So this was based on observations in archaeological labs. And this was about kind of the structure of notes and whether how you structure information has an influence on how you can kind of use it and understand it. This is very much a work in progress, so I'm not going to talk too much about this either. Right, so I'm going to talk about my own work for a little bit. So I am a student at the University of Southampton. I'm in the Archaeological Computing Research Group. And my PhD really focuses around one particular space, which is archaeological fieldwork, and thinking about how we might use novel technologies within that space. So archaeology is interesting because it provides a real kind of dramatic environment to be putting technology in with its own set of constraints, one of them being very dirty kind of environmental conditions, so we need to think about that, so the physical kind of constraints, but as well as a whole kind of set of baggage in archaeology which makes introducing technology very difficult. People are very resistant to it. So some of the ideas that kind of have been coming up in this workshop about kind of existing practice and whether you would respect existing practices and hope to get the most users involved with using your technology, or whether you go out there and try to disrupt practice and really kind of radicalise it, and whether you're going to get adoption, are all issues that I'm having to think about. So for the last year, the majority of my work has been based around ethnography, going into the environment and observing things. I'm taking perhaps a slightly different approach to other ethnographers who have done this in archaeology based on the fact that I'm thinking very much from a technological point of view. So one of the first things I did was I went into the labs around the University of Southampton, started talking to the archaeologists there,